Hey guys, it's Donkey Kong time to review the fifth episode, Kong for a Day. This episode introduces itself with some sort of festive event.
I'm one smooth simian. Check me out.
We're two.
When it's gruesome twosome. Two idiots.
Cranky announces that in their ceasefire, aka Congo Bongo Love Fest. Wait, disregard the fact that they're in a race war. Why was Bluster dancing with Diddy? Anyways, so DK is supposed to give a speech, but now he's busy going gorillas.
Come on, say something, DK.
And if you... What if... Right on, dude.
Though I'm editing the bananas out of these clips, I can't enforce the idea that this episode is campy enough. Sequences such as Bluster calling Diddy the only baboon without a feature to his name, followed by Diddy's angry hat-stomping animation straight from the games, is really just fantastic overall. This is the kind of style that cartoons such as Sonic the Hedgehog sought to achieve. I believe that some of Sonic the Hedgehog did achieve that campy feel a la Fat Albert. Now keep in mind, this doesn't mean the episode, or even almost the entirety of the first season, achieves this campy feel. And I'll get into the gradual progression into utter nonsense which this episode undergoes.
It's me, dude. You gave me your word, man.
It wasn't my fault. Somebody filched it. I'm sorry.
Bag the excuses, DK. Cop to it, man.
Anyways, in terms of plot, K-Rool has a very unique scheme in this episode, and I believe that this scheme is the primary downfall of this episode. K-Rool is creating social unrest through various acts such as initially innocent things such as making candy slip on a banana peel, and then more serious things such as breaking Funky Kong's surfboard, and framing DK for hitting on Dixie Kong hard. Which not only sounds like it was from an unfunny absurdist joke, but it is also an event that actually happened in this ungodly piece of work.
DK?
Hey, what about you, Dixie? Little Dixie Doodle, you are fine.
Huh? Hey, what is up with you?
Huh? I didn't say anything.
Dog and your best friend. Humph!
Come on, put a lip lock on me, Dixie.
So all of these things lead to great despair in the gorilla. Candy leaves him, Funky Kong gets straight pissed, and so is Diddy Kong. In my opinion, the examples of DK wreaking havoc on the island are just excessive in time and reasoning. So DK gets sent into exile and Diddy becomes the future ruler. Now that DK is in the White Mountains, he goes into a sad song.
I don't know what's happening to me. I'm getting all the blame for things I didn't do. Can anybody tell me just what I did wrong? I'm all alone.
But just how good can you make a sad song in a children's show about a gorilla that likes bananas? At this point, the episode is kind of surreal in its purest form. Not screen makes sense, and normally that's a lot more tolerable, but when I have to see Donkey Kong sad, it just makes me reflect on how garbage this experience is. Seriously, what was the intended effect of the writers? I genuinely have no clue. So now that DK is gone, K-Rool's scheming for the coconut begins, and this will come in the form of him taking over Bluster's factory again. I suppose K-Rool can just turn a barrel factory into an explosive barrel factory with his vast knowledge of industrialism and expansive collection of gunpowder. Anyways, showing remorse, Cranky seems to regret appointing Diddy Kong future ruler upon concluding that he may have made a mistake by canceling DK. And honestly, I agree. I don't think that we should cancel our family members, even if he did do the felonies and inconveniences by which he was framed. My point in all of this is that this episode had the potential to convey an actual narrative, as opposed to another 23 minutes of Donkey Kong's life. Yet this potential was squashed down with all of their visionary decisions about how they chose to take the direction of this episode. Anyways, Diddy Kong breaks into a song whining about how he has to save the factory like the lil man he is.
He was. I'm the tutti to his fruity and the peach to his fuzz.
As with all Diddy Kong solos, it's not great at all, and Diddy Kong should not have had a solo in the first place. Upon Diddy Kong's failure like the lil man he is, DK is called to save the day. He does. On a side note, one small touch that can take away from the goofy vibe of an episode is K. Rool's insults. Yes, I know it sounds odd at first, but hear me out. Decrepit Simeon and Numbskull don't really give off a goofy vibe, and they only contribute to just how boring of a villain K. Rool is in this episode. On account of stretching out this episode with filler content and nothing entertaining, this episode comes off really poorly. Although, as I said, they do earn an enjoyable feel at the beginning of this episode. That dies down as the episode becomes more degenerate than Donkey Kong's safety on Hit and Smash Ultimate. This is the kind of episode in which I genuinely have nothing positive to say about. It's just sad on account of all of its failures, but is it boring? I guess it's not boring. I'm Nobody's Hero is a good song due to the pipes of this gorilla. It's just detracting from the poor excuse of a narrative attempted by this episode. The sheer amount of time I can spend on the plot is a reflection of how dumbed down this episode is, and that is also an example of how much of a mixed bag this show is, when I can spend a lot more time on other episodes, but there's just nothing to look at here. In comparison to other episodes, this one appears mediocre on the surface, but is genuinely terrible when you realize how empty it is in the merit of its ideas, its aesthetic pleasure, dialogue. In almost anything, this episode is really lackluster. This episode will now be placed below Message in a Bottle Show because it's genuinely terrible with barely any merits at all, but it is not as bad in its lows as Raiders of the Lost Banana. Discord and Twitter in the description later, dudes. Place.